Jack the Giant Killer was the third film, I believe, that I worked on for a company called Project Unlimited. My very first job in the film business was for Art Clokey, the man who did the Gumby television shows. And then I worked for a short time on a film called The Time Machine, a George Pal film, and that was for Project Unlimited. Then I went back to work for Art Clokey, and then I came back to Project Unlimited, and I did a little bit of work on Jack the Giant Killer, helping to make the big bottle that you see in the film, that Don Beddoe, who plays the magic imp, is inside a big bottle so that he'll look small, and I helped polish that bottle. Then they put me to work on two other films. One was called Master of the World, and the other one was Goliath and the Dragon. And then they put me full-time on Jack the Giant Killer, and that was in 1960. We had three, I guess you could say 3.5 animators, because one of the animators was also a cameraman, and he spent most of his time doing the lighting. But the three animators who did most of the work were Tom Holland and Dave Pal and me. And Tom did all the scenes of the giant when it was small, and did the dance on the table with Princess Elaine. And he did some of the fight scenes, and one or two scenes of the harpy, and a lot of the scenes of Cormoran in the courtyard of the castle. Dave Pal did some of the scenes of Cormoran in the castle, and some of the scenes of Cormoran at the farm, and some of the sea monster scenes in the fight sequence. And then I did almost all of the harpy sequence, and a good part of the fight sequence, and some scenes in Elaine's bedroom, and some scenes in the courtyard, and some scenes at Jack's, no wait, maybe, yes, one or two scenes at Jack's farm, yes. Maybe I should explain that the way this job was done was the effects contract was given to the Howard Anderson Company by the producer Edward Small. And then Howard Anderson found a company to make and animate the models, because there were all kinds of effects in the movie. There were traveling mats and matte paintings and things that Project Unlimited didn't do. So Project Unlimited was subcontracted for the animation work, but the design of the puppets was done by the Howard Anderson Company's art director, Louis McManus. Then Wah Chang sculpted the clay models from the drawings that Louis McManus had made, and then we cast them there. He had them cast in foam rubber. And one or two of the puppets were built originally by Marcel Delgado, who had worked on King Kong, and he was working at Project Unlimited at that time. So he made the first version of the two-headed giant, and then they didn't like that version, so Wah sculpted a clay one and cast it out of foam, so the one that Marcel made didn't actually appear in the film. Then Wah made the third and final sea monster that was used in the movie. So that was not designed by Louis McManus, that was designed by Wah Chang. And I should probably say that there were all in all 3 sea monsters designed. They just couldn't get a sea monster they liked. So they had the very first one, which was sort of an octopus creature with very thin tentacles and a beak like a squid. Then they shot a test with that, a very early test using the infrared matting process. Then the producer didn't like that one, so Louis designed another one which looked like a sort of a reptilian panther kind of creature with big paws and large claws on its hands. And Wah sculpted that, but then the producer, Edward Small, didn't like the design, so they didn't build it. And then they said, all right, Wah, you design one that you like. So he sculpted the one that actually appears in the film and cast that, and that's the one we used. How I made the sequences? Well, the sequences were originally written in the script, and we had storyboards, and by the time I started on the film, they had shot all of the live action for the creature sequences, all the background plates that into which the creatures would be added. So at first I didn't have anything to do with how the scenes were done. But about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the production, they the producer became very unhappy with the fight sequence, and so they decided to redo a lot of the fight sequence. And so they asked me to design new scenes for the fight sequence. So I went to the beach with Daryl Anderson, and we figured out new scenes, and I came home and wrote up a little 2-page script for the added scenes. And then I did some very, very quick storyboards, very crude. And then we took a second unit crew back to the beach, quite a lot of people, and filmed the scenes. And so I directed the scenes that were going to have the monsters, the creatures put into them. And the editor, Grant Wytock, directed the other scenes that I had designed but didn't have any creatures in them. So I had come up with the idea of having shots of the monkey jumping up and down and so on, and the dog barking, and I had the giant throw the dog, grab the dog and throw it on the ground. So the scenes where the dog landed on the ground and where there was no creature in the shot, Grant directed those. And then the ones where we were going to put the creatures in, I directed. So that was a lot of fun. I was only 20 years old, which was kind of an interesting opportunity. Well, what can I say about stop motion animation? It's such a big, complicated question. I think it's wonderful that there are fans for stop motion animation, because now that CGI animation has come along, you know, there isn't as much stop motion being done as there was previously. But I think it's very exciting that many people all around the world are still interested in doing stop motion themselves and seeing stop motion films, and it's very exciting. So I'm always happy to know anytime anyone is doing any animation, even if they're just doing it at home in their garage or their, you know, their living room or wherever they can do it. You know, it's always wonderful, because really it's a way to create a performance. You don't actually have to be in front of the camera yourself, but you can make the puppets act and tell a story, and it's so wonderful, I think. And maybe I should add that I think it's very gratifying that the people in Japan are interested enough in the film Jack the Giant Killer and other films like this that they would want to do a very nice DVD. I think they pay more attention to this kind of film in Japan than they do in America. Sometimes they forget about these older films in America and they don't really respect them anymore, but I think the Japanese have a good respect for the art, and that makes me very happy. I think that anyone who wants to be a stop motion animator, the most important thing is to never give up. You just have to want to do it very, very much, because it's not the most popular way to make a living if you want to do it professionally. Maybe there isn't as many jobs as there are people who want to do it, so you just have to keep trying. My personal advice would be that if you want to make films of your own, you should just start doing that. I mean, you can go basically down two different paths. You can be an animator for employment and be hired to work on a commercial or music video or something like that. Or you can make your own personal artistic type of film. And of course you can do both. But I think sometimes if you start out to be an employed animator, maybe they don't take you seriously if you then say, I want to make an artistic film. I don't know, maybe in Japan it isn't like that, but in America it's a little bit like that. So it's good to work for other people to get experience, but I think it's also good not to wait too long if you want to make your own experimental film or art film. You should just start doing it. Even if the first one isn't good, it doesn't matter. Just keep doing it, you know. And the more you do, the better it will be. Ah, well, what can I say to Japanese fans? I'm glad there are Japanese fans. That makes me very happy to know that people in Japan like this work and maybe like my work, and so it's wonderful. It's just wonderful to know, because I mean, to be honest, sometimes it's possible to get discouraged when you think no one is interested anymore. So when I hear that people are still interested, it makes me very happy, and I can say thank you. You know. So here we see Jack climbing up on the scaffolding of the boat, and we're going to put the harpy over him later. So that's what he's really standing on. And then you can see how it looks in the actual film, where he's on the back of the harpy. Of course, this was shot from a helicopter. This is the actual background plate for the scene where Elaine dances with the little giant. And this is exactly how it came out of the camera. So there's lots of waiting around. And I don't believe they actually use this angle at all for this first part of the sequence. We have Judy Meredith, Torrin Thatcher, and Walter Burke. They tried to do this scene two different ways. They did one test where they used this as a back projection plate, very large one, because the people had to be projected slightly larger than normal size. This was the original infrared test that they made before they actually started production on the film, just to prove that it would work. And that was a giant that was built by Marcel Delgado, built up without molds, and the first version of the sea monster. Well, this was a 16mm thing I did between the time I worked for Project Unlimited the first time and when I went back to work with them on Jack the Giant Killer. I did this at home just with some little puppet characters. I called them Lilliputians. Just all part of the practicing. I was about 19 when I did this. After I learned how to do animation by working on films like Jack the Giant Killer, I wanted to make a story of my own. And so it took me many years to finally get in the position where I could do that. But I wrote a story with a friend of mine named Bill Taylor, and we came up with this project called TIMEGATE. And so then I wrote a complete screenplay, and I found someone to put the money up, and we started working on the film, and I got to hire all my friends to work on the effects, and it was a lot of fun. But after about a year, they decided to take the funding away. They had all kinds of problems. They took the funding away. And I had had a promise from another funding source that if I ever wanted to make another film, they would give me the money to do it. So I called them up, and they said that the United States had changed the tax laws, and they were no longer giving money to fund movies. So TIMEGATE never got finished. But during that period, when I was trying to find more funding for the film, I made a trailer to show to the potential investors. And this was had to be made very quickly because it was costing me a lot of money to keep renting all of the facilities, and we had all the props and everything stored. So I took what film we had already shot, which was just the daily prints. And so when you see the trailer, you'll see that some of the scenes are very scratchy. And that's because they were dailies that we were using to edit with. And so I just video edited them together and made just a little film a couple minutes long to give the idea of what TIMEGATE was about. And I probably made a mistake when I was doing it because people have told me later that they thought some of the scenes weren't very good, and when I asked them about it, it turned out that the scenes where I had hired a model to demonstrate, to wear the costume and to demonstrate the props that we had made, some people thought were supposed to be scenes from the movie, which they aren't. So I had her always have a big smile on her face so everyone would know that it wasn't a dramatic scene. But I guess they just thought it was bad directing from me. So when you see the trailer, you need to understand that the scenes from the film are the ones that are in color and scratchy, and the ones that look very clean are the ones we shot especially just to demonstrate the costumes and the props.
In the year 2021, the Kronex Corporation will introduce commercial time travel. But you can join Kronex now and journey through a time gate to adventure. Adventure at the dawn of time. A time before civilization. A time before man. When ancient beasts dominated the earth.
Time gate.
Gate!
Time gate. Time gate. Time gate.
Production has begun on TIMEGATE. A schematic model of the time traveler's campsite is used by director Jim Danforth and artist Randy Cook to plan one of TIMEGATE's exciting action sequences. Hundreds of drawings have been created to visualize the thrilling battles between man and beast.
Look out, it's gonna ram us.
Many of these drawings have already been translated to film. The locations for TIMEGATE have been chosen in California's mountains, deserts, and volcanic areas, where second unit crews have already photographed thousands of feet of background scenes. Music is an integral part of the TIMEGATE concept. Composer John Morgan will create a full symphonic score in the tradition of Steiner and Korngold. Costumes, sets, and props have been designed and built. The Kronex binoculars, the Kronex communicator, the Kronex wet bar, the time beacon. The time beacon, focal point of the time transmission process. The time beacon, carefully serviced and maintained. the only link across the 70 million years which separate the time tourists from their own world. The time beacon, destroyed in a freak accident, leaving the time travelers stranded in the past. The crab-legged walking machine, intended as a recreational vehicle, it becomes the time traveler's only means of escape from the hostile prehistoric world. The Kronex laser weapons, the only defense against the bestial terrors which roam the past.
Join the Kronex Prehistoric Safari.
Here we see Tom Sherman, who's putting the finishing touches on our miniature cliff that we're going to use for the TIMEGATE avalanche sequence. And here we're filming that. This is a background film or behind the scenes film that was shot at normal speed. Of course, in actual fact, we would shoot at 3 times normal. Or here we go again. It's dirty work, but somebody's got to do it. We originally made a very complicated device that slid on a track on the top of the miniature and dumped the rocks sort of automatically, but it turned out that it was easier to just have people stand up there and throw them. And these were scenes that were going to be used as background plates for a miniature animated walking machine that was something like a crab. It had 8 legs, and the time tourists rode in it. And so we shot many shots on this same cliff, and then we would take the cliff apart and change it a little bit and shoot other scenes. Now here's a slow motion scene which makes the rocks look bigger. This was shot actually not quite as fast as the 35mm camera was running. This is 16mm footage, but the 35 ran 50% faster, so the rocks went even more slowly and looked bigger. That's Bill Hedge. He knows that's a good take. Now here we are out on location, some very jumpy 8mm footage that was shot while we were on location for TIMEGATE. We're fueling up a trail bike. Now in the background there you can see a plume of smoke coming up. We happen to be very near the China Lake Naval Weapons Test Center where they test rockets and things, and apparently one of them blew up. So I thought that was good luck because it looked like a prehistoric volcano on the background, so we were trying to get this shot before the smoke dissipated. And of course these are not the angles that would be used in the film. This was just one of the crew members had an 8mm camera and was covering this. And the idea is that the woman on the trail bike is being chased by a Styracosaurus and is trying to get back and warn the others. And she had a lot of trouble with this, getting this sharp turn on the bike, even though she was a professional stunt woman, but that bike was very hard to manage, and I should say that I tried to ride it and I couldn't do it. She's stronger than I am. Well, a few years later, after I had been unsuccessful in getting TIMEGATE funded, I decided to try again with another film, and I looked around for an idea. I first wrote a story called Willy Boo, which was a film for children, really, and I couldn't get anyone to finance it because they said it wasn't based on any known characters, that they wanted something that was already known all over the world. So my wife and I thought, what could we find that we could afford that we wouldn't have to pay a lot of money for the rights, but people all over the world would know it, and it would still be of interest. And so we decided maybe Sherlock Holmes would be interesting, but I wanted to do something that had a little more excitement or a little more adventure to it. So I had the idea that Sherlock Holmes could be a little bit more of an action type of character and could be sent to various parts of the planet Earth, doing business for the British government, working for Queen Victoria. So in the first episode, the first feature idea I had was to have him go to India. And if people who are aware of the Sherlock Holmes stories know that one of his enemies was Colonel Moran. So this story is about how he first meets Colonel Moran and what happens to him there. And so I decided to do the same thing that I had tried to do with TIMEGATE, which was to film about 10 minutes of this movie first, just as a demonstration, so that people would understand what it was that I was trying to do. And so that's how we made the trailer, which is not entirely finished. All of the photography is done and it's edited, but I haven't finished the sound. So what I have that we can look at here on the DVD is just a couple of sequences. One of them is in good condition. The other one is, again, a very scratchy work print. But that's what the point of it was just to demonstrate to people.
You slip away.
But Khalid.
Even Khalid, if fate supplied the right opportunity. His patrol destroyed, his comrades dead.
Our family has been in India since the days of the Mughals. Desertion is not in my brother's blood, and you know that.
Mahjabeen,
Thank you for seeing me.
I'll find him.
If Khalid is alive, Sebastian, I'll find him.
Now here we are working on the trailer I did for West of Kashmir. We had several Japanese people working on this project with us. There's one in the background, the Sao. This was a scene that we did, supposed to be outside a fort near the border of Afghanistan and what was in those days India, now Pakistan. And here we have a sort of cable-controlled camel. Here we see camel can chew slightly. And here we have one of the Haga brothers down here operating it, which we'll see in a minute. That's our set. It's actually a hanging miniature shot.